What's going on, guys? So we're 3 episodes in of X-Men 97 and it's been pretty good so far. If you've watched the 3rd episode, you'll notice that there are now 2 Jean Greys, and Beast concluded that the woman who showed up is in fact the real Jean Grey. So you're probably wondering, why are there 2 Jean Greys? Well, let me tell you about the tragic story of Madelyn Pryor. Madelyn Pryor is a character from the comics who would eventually become the antagonist, known as the Goblin Queen. After the events of the Phoenix Saga, during their battle with the Shi'ar Empire, Jean Grey died, which led Scott Summers to leave the X-Men. Scott would take a trip to Alaska to meet his grandparents, where he'd meet a woman by the name of Madelyne Pryor. Coincidentally, this Madelyne Pryor looked exactly like his deceased lover, Jean Grey, which led Scott to fall in love with her rather quickly. Scott would bring up the fact that Madelyne looked just like Jean Grey and asked if she was Jean reincarnated, and this infuriated Madelyne. Probably not the best idea to compare your wife to your ex. So at this time, the Phoenix Force returned to Earth and possessed Madelyne, causing her to go on a rampage against the X-Men. But after freeing her, Scott made peace with the fact that Madelyne was not Jean, and Jean was dead. Or so we thought he did. Scott and Madelyne would eventually get married, and they would have a baby boy together whom they named Nathan Summers. Some of you may know him as Cable from a distant future. Since Scott was now a father, there was some argument about who should lead the X-Men, him or Storm. So they left it to a duel, and Storm was the victor. It was actually around this time that Storm lost her powers in the comics. Funny enough, she just lost her powers in the series as well, but I'll leave that for another video. So Storm is now leader of the X-Men, and Scott leaves to go raise his family. But this is where the story really takes a different turn. Although Scott did make peace with Jean's death, he couldn't stop thinking about her, and the fact that Madelyne and Jean looked alike made it so much worse for him. Now, around this time, Jean Grey was brought back to life, and once Scott got word of this, he left Madelyne by herself. Yeah, that's right, Scott Summers was treading in deadbeat dad territory.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Anyway, now left by herself, Madelyne was attacked by the Marauders, who tried to kill her and kidnap baby Nathan. But she was able to fight them off, and she would eventually stay with the X-Men for her safety. But they did manage to take Nathan. Now it's important to point out that after Jean Grey came back to life, the original X-Men formed a new team known as X-Factor. So there were 2 X-Men teams at that time. So after Madelyne discovered that Scott was on this new X-Men team, she also noticed that Jean Grey was alive. So she concluded that Scott had abandoned her for his ex, which he did do, of course. So she knocks out the TV screen, which leaves her unconscious. Now, this was during the Inferno storyline where 2 demons from Limbo planned to carry out a demon invasion on planet Earth. One of the demons, Sim, invades Madelyne's mind while she was unconscious and puts her in a nightmare where she witnesses Scott telling her he doesn't love her anymore and leaving her for Jean Grey, taking baby Nathan with them. Later in the nightmare, Madelyne would encounter Sim, who offers her a chance to become something more, and her thinking that it was really just a dream takes his offer, which transforms her into the Goblin Queen. Now with her new demon form, Madelyne had it in her mind that everything she went through, Scott leaving, her losing her baby, was the fault of Jean Grey. So she made a bargain with the other demon, Nastir, to help get her baby back, and she'd help them with their demon invasion. So once they found the Marauders, Madelyne encountered Mr. Sinister, who was really the mastermind behind the Marauders' attack. Mr. Sinister would go on to reveal that he was the one who created Madelyne as a clone of Jean Grey and planted her to fall in love with Scott Summers. After he got word that Jean Grey came back to life, he couldn't allow them to meet, or Madelyne would discover the truth. So he sent the Marauders to kill her and kidnap baby Nathan. So after battling Mr. Sinister, Madelyne retrieved her baby, so she held up her end of the bargain to help the demons with their invasion. This led to her finally encountering Jean Grey, along with the other X-Men, and Madelyne took her hostage. As revenge, she threatened to kill them all, which led to her battling Jean and the X-Men. So she committed suicide and attempted to take Jean Grey with her, but the Phoenix Force returned to Earth and saved Jean Grey, and luckily they were able to save baby Nathan as well. Now, in the X-Men 97 series, they seem to have skipped over the Inferno storyline and combined it into one story, where Mr. Sinister clones Jean Grey and turns the clone, who's actually Madelyne Pryor, into the Goblin Queen, and he kidnaps baby Nathan and infects him with a virus. Now remember, I said earlier that Nathan Summers is Cable from a distant future. Well, in the comics, baby Nathan gets infected with a virus by Apocalypse, and in order to cure him, he had to be taken to the future, and he grows up to become Cable in that timeline. The series does adapt this plotline in episode 3 by having Bishop taking baby Nathan to the future after he was infected by Mr. Sinister. So they combined 3 storylines into one, basically. So seeing as how Madelyn Pryor is a clone of Jean Grey, she has the same powers as her: telepathy, telekinesis, and so on. And as the Goblin Queen, those abilities become more powerful and demon-based, like she can summon and control demons and even warp reality, as we saw her do in episode 3 of the series. But it looks like they're not fully making Madelyn Pryor into a villain. She was just under Mr. Sinister's control, which the real Jean Grey used her powers to break. And it doesn't look like we've seen the last of her. But let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.